Hey, what's up, ANC Youth? This past Sunday, we kicked off a brand new series called So Near Yet So Far, where we began to look at some of the tragic figures in the Bible who were so close to experiencing God and yet they fell away or walked away. And the one that we looked at this past Sunday, his name was Gehazi, a disciple of Prophet Elisha. And for him, his problem was his greed. And his greed was in direct opposition to God's grace. You see, number one, Gehazi's greed had actually blinded him from seeing God's grace, so he couldn't understand why God and Elisha would be gracious to someone like Naaman, a commander of the army of Syria. And number two, his greed had actually misrepresented God's grace because of a lie that he told to Naaman. Now, the version of God that Naaman heard was that just like the idols that he served, God demanded a payment for this work of grace that Naaman received, and that misrepresented God and his grace. And lastly, his greed had actually destroyed God's grace for himself. You see, he received the grace of being a disciple of Elisha and being able to follow God and being called to this greater calling, and yet he traded all that for just the sum of money and some clothes. And you see, what we need to learn here is that as we struggle with our own greed in our hearts, that we gotta repent, surrender that, and we need to remember the grace that we have received and represent that to those around us because our God, His grace, is sufficient and good. Have a good week.